which is an audience and communicate, which is an audience and communicate, which is an audience and communicate, which is an audience and which is an audience and community. It's Tuesday, August 3rd. This is episode 174 of the Token CEO podcast. We're presented by Sports Research. We're having a big debate right now in my office about whether or not we're watching the Olympics. The Olympics end on August 8th. Hand up, I am not watching the Olympics. My mother WhatsApps me every day about what I thought about what happened in the Olympics. And I'm like, Mom, I could give a fuck. I'm not watching it at all. Rachel thinks it's because of streaming and people are confused where it is. Allie thinks that no fans make it boring. I just don't think people are tuning into television the way they used to. The headlines haven't been interesting coming out of the Olympics. Like the women's soccer team is whiffing it, and other headlines are whether or not Simone Biles is competing. So if you don't feel like watching television and you do feel like going out there and doing something, Sports Research can help you do it the best way possible. They've got collagen, they've got vitamins. I noticed this morning that my collagen is almost gone. That means I've gone through like a vat of collagen, which is fairly disgusting, but it's delicious and I love it. If you go to sportsresearch.com, you can get Sweet Sweat, you can get all those things, you can get the at-home workout kit, and if you use code Erica, you can get 25% off at checkout. So that's sportsresearch.com, code Erica, 25% off at checkout. What are we doing today? Here's what we're doing today. We are talking about headlines. We're having a quick interview with Karim. Karim worked the entire week of the 4th of July on Barstool Athletes with his pal Austin. They're Dave's guys. So he's going to talk about that experience and what he's seeing with Barstool Athletes. And then we're going to hit voicemails. First headline is newsletters are all the rage. Substack wants to rule the world. I'm a big fan of Substack. I think Substack is a platform to watch. They've just acquired a company called Letter. Letter is a king of public correspondence startup. I don't even understand what that is supposed to mean. What is a king of why do people say that they're the kings and queens of everything? It's like, why don't you earn it first and then call yourself the king? Do you know what I mean? I hate when people do that. Anyways, Letter was created by Davey and Clyde Rathbone. So the price of the transaction was never revealed. Letter has never raised any venture capital. They have raised private capital from angel investors, but this is one of the biggest acquisitions for Substack. The only reason you should care about this is newsletters matter. I went to the Penn board meeting, in Philly probably 2 months ago, and I was talking about how I'm generally obsessed with newsletters. The newsletter business is a great business. You see a ton of subscription-driven businesses happening right now in the internet, and the newsletter is one of the most effective models. Substack's competitors, so whether you're looking at Morning Brew or Axios or other news organizations, or as you're looking at platforms, newsletters are becoming a very efficient conduit to connect audiences with brands and with publishers in a way that feels exclusive and a way that is highly curated. The Letter acquisition is the latest in the string of moves and investments by Substack. They are doing a lot, which I really admire, to support their writers. So they have a legal defense fund. They have a curriculum of online courses. They've got an in-house Slack channel. And then in May, they also acquired a company called People & Company, which is an audience and community management consultancy, which is designed to help their writers gain bigger communities or to develop communities with their audiences. So Hamish McKenzie is the co-founder of Substack. And what he says is the idea is that you're not having to figure out everything by yourself. We always thought that it's not enough to offer some disparate tools. We're setting about building an entire infrastructure. So there you have it. So Barry Weiss leaves the New York Times. She goes over to Substack. Barry's going to build an entire business. She still has not launched her t-shirt business, much to my chagrin, but Substack is clearly going to deliver for her the tools that she needs to develop a community, to be able to publish effectively, probably to have data analytics around that. And then ultimately, she will need the ability, and others like her will need the ability to monetize in multiple ways. Sunday, Square announced that they're buying Afterpay. They're buying them for a whopping $29 billion to help them tap into younger users. Afterpay, for anybody who doesn't know, is when you're doing some online shopping, you don't want to put everything on your credit card. You want to pay month over month. So the thing with Afterpay is that unlike some of their competitors, who would include Affirm, some others, is that Afterpay does not require you to have a credit card, and they don't charge interest. So you can essentially borrow money for free. You can buy whatever you want, and then you don't have to have a credit card to back it up. That seems somewhat dangerous to me. But anyway, Square didn't think so. And what Square wants is young users and young people like it when they can borrow money for free without a credit card with no interest. Jack Dorsey bought the Australian-based company. It's the biggest acquisition for Square ever. Square says that the buy now, pay later concept represents a chance to capitalize on the shift away from traditional credit, especially amongst younger users. Square will integrate Afterpay into Cash App. Square will integrate Afterpay into its consumer-facing Cash App, and then they will also leverage Afterpay as part of their B2B services. Sorry, one small hitch to the no interest is that's required for you to pay on time. So I bet the interest is actually outrageous when people don't pay on time, which is what the credit card companies never tell you. What's most exciting about this for Square is that Afterpay will boost Cash App's total user base by 16 million users, bringing the total Cash App addressable audience to roughly 86 million users. I still am mystified that Jack Dorsey is the CEO of two companies, which I just think is interesting. I'd love to have talked to him about that sometime. But anyways, I always love acquisitions. I think acquisitions are very exciting. It's also I think it's interesting to see the disruption to credit, whereby, it used to be Visa and American Express or the Discover card or MasterCard. And now you have all of these new companies cropping up who are more appealing to young users, whether it's using Venmo. Like I use Venmo all the time right now. Cash App would probably wish I used Cash App, but they should sponsor this pod. But it's interesting to see the way money is changing, how people buy things, how they think about transferring money, what they value from a credit card or from a financial institution, right? It's not about trust. It's not about the institution. It's not about knowing that Citibank has an office or a location down the street. What young audiences want and digitally native people want is they want seamless transactions that they can manage from apps on their phone. And they want seamless transactions that appear in their checkout and in their purchase cycle. So when you look at Apple Pay or you look at Affirm or you look at Afterpay, companies that are making it easy to buy something without having to think about it and with very little consequence for it, that's the name of the game, right? That's the criticism of Robinhood. Robinhood makes it very easy to buy stocks when you perhaps don't have money to buy stocks. It's just a swipe. It's not any different from how you're adding a photo to Instagram, how you're sharing something on TikTok. It's all very seamless. It's all deeply integrated, and the lack of friction both in the purchase cycle and in the payment cycle is really what people seem to value. Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine. So Reese Witherspoon, this was right around the time that I was joining Barstool, actually. So probably 2015, 2016, Reese Witherspoon created a production company called Hello Sunshine. Hello Sunshine was incubated inside the Chernin Group, so big shout out to Peter Chernin. They've created a whole slate of programming, including Big Little Lies, which was a massive success on HBO. Small side note, I created a production company. I haven't even told anybody this. I created a production company. Yep, called Scarlet Letter Productions. I'll talk about it right here. Yeah, so I was inspired by Hello Sunshine. I was like, why the fuck don't I have a production company? I could have a production company. I have no time to manage a production company, but I have one branded and trademarked if we ever want it. So it's called Scarlet Letter Productions. I'm just going to tell stories about bad girls. Hello Sunshine is selling to Blackstone Group for $900 million, which just makes me cry inside on the valuation of Barstool Sports. But besides that, congratulations to Reese. Congratulations to everyone at the Chernin Group. Congratulations to everyone at AT&T. AT&T was a big backer of Hello Sunshine from the jump. What's also interesting is that Blackstone has bought Hello Sunshine, again, for $900 million, which is amazing. $900 million. And the people running it will be two former Disney execs. So former CFO of Disney and Kevin Mayer will be leading the group. They will run the Hello Sunshine business. There's going to be a lot of people who are far more richer in Hollywood right now. And you know what I'm excited about? They're all women. So go Reese Witherspoon. What do you do when your company gets acquired for $900 million? You buy a house, right? Cross Country Mortgage is an incredible company. They have unbelievably low rates, and they believe that you should not pay the bank more than you need to. Cross Country Mortgage makes it extremely simple to figure out how much you can save on a monthly basis over the life of your home loan. If you are a homeowner and you haven't refinanced your loan, you may be leaving thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on the table that could be working for you. You can call Cross Country Mortgage today for a fast, free quote. They'll also give you a free home valuation. So go to crosscountrymortgage.com/barstool to learn more about your future home buying experience or to refinance your current mortgage. Cross Country Mortgage LLC, NMLS 3029, all loans subject to underwriting approval, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Next up, we have an interview with Karim. So Karim's been a Barstool employee for about 2 years. He came to us from Minnesota. He was a viceroy before he was a Barstool employee. He's transitioned to be one of Dave's guys, is how we would call it here. If I talk to people outside this company, they would say that's a microaggression. So he's one of Dave's people. And what that means is whatever it takes, Karim gets it done. And what I wanted to talk to Karim about is the inception of Barstool Athletes and what it's like to work on a ground level with Dave and with Barstool and what it's like here to bring an idea to life. All right, Karim. So let's start with you real quick. Who are you and how'd you get to Barstool?
Cool. So I'm Karim. I've been working here for, I think, over 2 years now, but a viceroy for, I think, 3 more of those. So 5 in total.
From Minnesota?
From Minnesota, yep. So that's how I started. I went to the University of Minnesota. And then I applied. I saw a tweet that was like, "Hey, we need a viceroy for this account." Didn't even know what Barstool was. That a lot of people that come in here usually are big Barstool fans, big Dave fans. I actually didn't really know that much. I just knew it was kind of an Instagram account. But I went to Minnesota and knew that there was really no like place where you could. There wasn't like a hub for students. Like it was like we're in Minneapolis, so it's a giant city. It's not really a college town. Like we have our like concentrated area on campus, but there's not really anywhere where you can find out what's going on. So I was like, oh, what if I take this and kind of make it like a party hub? Like it's just where you can find out what's going on campus. So started that, ran that for like 3-4 years. I got a little bit lucky in the sense that HQ came to Minnesota for the Super Bowl and the Final Four.
So describe that.
So I got an email, I think, from Paul Gaz and was like, hey, like Minnesota, we're coming to Minnesota for the Super Bowl. Do you have like any, like you live there, I'm guessing you go to school there? And I'm like, yep, been here for pretty much my whole life. And so I came to the Cowboy Jacks, which is like the Minnesota bar that we always go to here. And yeah, it was pretty fun. I mean, I just came and helped for like a week. We did radio there.
That was such a shit show. Do you remember what a shit show it was?
Giant shit show. So I actually just sold merch the entire week.
Yes.
Like I was working with some guy who worked on like an app that we were using to, I don't even think he really worked at Barstool.
No, he didn't. We had the rep from Shopify.
Yes,
it was like our Shopify rep. So just to set the stage. All right. So we roll into Minnesota we roll into Minneapolis for the Super Bowl. It is -10 to -20 out. It was freezing. We, at that point, were all staying in one house. And we had mattresses everywhere. There was like a large, grand living room, and it was like Frankie, the Foreplay guys, KFC radio was downstairs in a closet. Dave and I had bedrooms upstairs. Like, it was a gong show. We were completely overwhelmed. Like there was a line out the door, and it was one of the first times that we reluctantly agreed to sell merch on site. And it was a complete shit show. Like I had this intern kid that I basically like flew in from Massachusetts to help. Like, remember, it was like we needed so much manual labor. It's just a disaster. And then my favorite part was that Brett Merriman, do you remember Brett Merriman leaving? And then he left like 700 boxes of merch inside inside the mansion when we left. But anyways, we also were never able to stay in an Airbnb after that again, thanks to the 70 boxes. But I do love Brett Merriman. Okay, anyways. Okay, so you got to Barstool. We hired you. Just tell us a little bit about your job.
Yep. So I got started as a social media, I don't really know what we call them, specialist, I guess, just someone under gas, like someone who posts on our
social
various
media
accounts.
Person.
Yeah,
Yep.
social media person. And eventually I kind of just worked my way through doing various social tasks until we hit quarantine.
Yeah.
And then quarantine hit, and Dave obviously did the unboxing.
Yeah. And you stayed and cleaned up his apartment every day.
So I saw the first stream and I was like, hey, I figure you're probably gonna need help. Him and I both didn't know what that would turn into.
Yeah.
I didn't actually really even know him at the time. Like I maybe said 10 words to him.
Yeah.
And
Did you proactively reach out to him?
I did. Yeah. I just saw that he did this stream, and I knew that people had left the city because my 2 roommates who also work here left the city, and I just knew that everyone was gone, and I was like, he probably is going to need help picking this up. So I just sent him a quick email. I was like, hey, if you need help. He's like, yeah, show up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Sure enough, I did that for like 2 months. Was at his house for like probably 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
I'm sure he got tired of like Spider and I being there all the time, but that actually like
But your work ethic was amazing. Like you were very impressive during that time.
Yeah, so that actually helped me and Dave like develop a relationship, whereas he knew me before from like gambling Guygate or whatever, where it was.
Oh, so you were involved in the Jack McCarthy gambling circuit?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Him
that.
and I were
Explain
kind
that.
of the main culprits.
Oh,
Basically.
really? You had you had a guy?
Yeah, I'm still adamant about the fact that like there really was nothing, and it was kind of just like drawn out. But yes, like that. So my relationship with Dave was like not great. But then unboxing happened, and then sure enough, it kind of repaired itself. But that's how I got transitioned out of social. Was unboxing happened, and then Dave was like, "Hey, I want you to do more gambling stuff." So then Pick Central started. And I might be getting the timeline like sort of switched, but my relationship with Dave grew, and then basically he put me into doing more gambling content, and then I started this Sportsbook Social. Me and Jack basically ran the Sportsbook Social all throughout quarantine and kind of like growing that up until we started it. And then eventually I just kind of started doing more Dave stuff, and then kind of grew out of that. So I started a social media guy, went to Sportsbook, and then now I just basically...
You do Dave stuff.
Right. I don't really know how to define that.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess,
like special projects.
yeah, it's just sort of like I just help Dave with his life.
So, all right. So week of July 4th, we're off, right? Theoretically.
Yes.
Office is closed. Everybody's on vacation. Do you still live with 2 people from Barstool?
I do, yeah.
Who do you live with?
Jack and Cody. Jack McCarthy and Cody.
Okay. Do you like it?
Yeah, we've lived together for a couple of years.
Okay. So Jack and Cody probably go on vacation, and you're like stuck here in New York City yet again. Dun, dun, dun. And then Dave's like, hey, we're doing Barstool Athletes. So describe what happens next in your world.
Yeah, so just like everything else at Barstool, it kind of happened very randomly, and I saw a token tweet that said, over breaks, like we started Barstool Fund over the Christmas break, and now we're doing this Barstool Athlete thing. But basically, Dave, that's how Dave works. He got an Instagram DM, and then he just created this
that's
like
a good idea. Let's
huge...
just announce it.
Yeah. Without we didn't even know what
no
to
infrastructure.
expect.
Yeah.
So we had like a Google Meet with like 8 or 9 people,
Yeah.
and it was like Dave just basically yelling at us saying like we need to get all these people into the program, and we were just doing it manually. It's like, oh, what if we created a form?
Yeah.
What if we did all this stuff? So there was just so much that we needed to work on, and then but it also fell on a vacation week, so all those 7 other people that were in the Google Meet,
Ghosted.
like Paul Gaz, like love him, but best boss I've ever had, but
Not your go-to guy.
Yeah, he was on vacation.
Gaz
right,
is
so-
like, I'm getting drunk in Nantucket and Instagramming my cool sweatshirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So Austin and I basically, Austin, another one of Dave's guys that him and I work very closely together, but him and I basically just decided this is how we're going to do it. We're going to make a form, people are going to sign up, and then we're just going to try to get as many people posted on social media as we can. Like if we can introduce all these athletes in, then eventually like this program will grow, and like as long as we get their name out there, then we can figure the rest out later.
It's all good. So just to take a quick step back for folks. So gets announced that the name, image, likeness is open. Athletes can profit off their name, they can profit off their image, and they can profit off their likeness. So you have, I think historically how people have thought about this is that there's a very, very elite tier of athletes who will be able to profit off their NIL. You look at the biggest and best basketball players. You look at the biggest and best football players. You think about the quarterbacks. You think about the star gymnasts. You think about... I don't think you really think about track and field, but big sports, big lucrative advertising contracts, right? Like that's really, I think, what everybody's thinking about. We announced that we're going to create Barstool Athletes. You're exactly right. The genius of Dave Portnoy is he just fucking does it, and then we'll figure it out later. And I think one of the things that I think is really emblematic of the Barstool Athletes program and the Barstool Fund is we just figured it out. Like most companies, when we talked about even Let Them Play, when we did the Let Them Play tournament, I had a good friend from NBC write me who was like, it would have taken us like 3 years to do that. And when we did the Barstool Fund, like a bunch of nonprofit people were like, we would have set 2 years to do that. And the great thing about Barstool is that there's just the spark. Dave is such a great spark. And then we have people like you who just will grind and dig and we'll figure it out. And the thing that I love is like that week sucked. I mean, there were tens of thousands of emails coming in 24/7.
Right.
Everyone was getting DM'd. Everybody has a friend that goes to some D3 shit school and maybe they play, like they've got 10 minutes of playing time and they're like, I'm in to be a Barstool athlete.
Yeah.
But that's actually, I think, what's so different about the Barstool athlete program is that we're not going to be an agent. We're not going to be your, we're not going to be your rep. But when you think about 200,000 kids in college who want to be part of something, there's a way to harness those people to not only build their brands, but also to help them make money. Now, what's been interesting, in my opinion, and I want you to talk about the experience. What's been interesting, in my opinion, is, while yes, NIL is open, the schools are being so difficult and it's so fractured. So it's state by state, school by school. You can wear your, you can wear your uniform. You can't wear your uniform. You can participate in these types of programs, but not those types of programs. And, what I think is interesting is when you think about harnessing 200,000 student athletes, you could have female athletes, right? We could do something around women. We could do something around offensive linemen. You can do something around wrestlers. You could do something around Midwest schools. And what I see happening is there's going to be a big ecosystem built of technology companies that are going to create a marketplace. They're going to enable a technology-driven solution that lets an athlete opt in to do something and that will get paid for that action. The problem is that most of these athletes on a one-by-one basis aren't going to convert well and they're not going to be that interesting. And that's where I think we have so much opportunity is to build their brands, to create a one-to-many solution that gives value to the athletes, and then in return helps amplify those two things together that works for the brand and works for the athlete. And I also think the commerce piece of it, like we launched a t-shirt last week. Right. Like we can do commerce in a way that no one else is thinking about and no one else can do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's basically power in numbers. It's almost, I relate it to the Viceroy program a little bit. If you have a foot in the door in every state and every school, it's almost the same thing as athletes. If you have every single sport, we have every single sport accounted for. Every single Division I sport, every single Division I school, there's been an applicant, there's been someone who's been admitted into the program. So that's like probably the greatest strength, I think, is the power in the numbers. But I do agree that we can do so many different things. Commerce, I think, is interesting. Spencer Lee's shirt for Iowa Wrestling, maybe not a traditionally like giant three big college sport, but wrestling is such a niche community, and they rallied around his shirt because here's one of our like best guys. Let's rally around him and make him money because now he can actually do it. So yeah, the shirt sold really well, and I think that's just a prime example of no matter what sport you play, like we can work something out.
Yeah, we can tell your story. We can create more fans for you. I think anyone who's joined that program and been posted on our Instagram has gained followers.
Oh, yes,
bar none.
100%.
And then the second piece is we can create context for you that drives other people to rally for you. That's what we always do, whether it's a charity, whether it's the Barstool Fund, whether it's a tournament, whatever it may be. Like we can rally people around you. So I think we're just at the beginning of what we can do there. Talk to me a little bit about like the work process. So, you guys are getting inundated. We kind of optimize things on the fly. You and I are texting about, issues are cropping up right and left. Mm-hmm. How do you think about having a job like that? Like, do you get tired of the grind? Because you're on call, right? Like you are on call when duty calls and you got to work the entire vacation week, right. 18 hours a day, which you were. Like, do you resent it? How do you think about that?
I personally don't. I strive myself on just like being a workhorse. Like that's my environment. Like I don't really like going out. I don't like doing all that stuff. Like if my mind can be like focused on one thing and kind of progress through something like athletes where it's like we start we start with just an Instagram account and just a thought in Dave's head, and then 2 days later you have like 180,000 Instagram followers. That type of virality like doesn't happen on Instagram anymore. It's like that's a crazy number. But so for me, it's like I just like doing it, but I do think it can kind of be. So the week does suck. Like if you're sitting in here 18 hours while everyone is on vacation, like posting like Instagram stories, and like I see it, like I'm friends with everybody, like we're Instagram friends, like you just go through and see everyone having a good time. It is kind of, it's frustrating to deal with, but also I think me and Austin's mindset, me and Austin were the ones who were just sitting in here the entire time. Once you do it, it feels a lot more like fulfilling. Like it's not, I didn't.
It also was your project.
Yes, yeah, and you can take like you it's yours. You just right. You take accountability for like what it is and what it becomes, and that's rewarding, I guess, in a sense. So also it's the Dave thing. It's like working for Dave. You never know. Like you kind of expect that in the Dave business. He can just at the snap of a finger just do something else, and he'll do that again. Whatever it may be. Like that's how Barstool works. So I think, like I said, it was probably I could have gotten a little bit more sleep on my vacation week, but I actually had
You had a great week.
Yes, looking back at it, it was like
you'll remember that week for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like, that was crazy.
Yeah, and I'm still here. Like I've nothing really changed. You know, I'm glad that we built something out of it. It really was rewarding to see like some crazy like people just rallying around this like athletes thing, just based off of us posting on Instagram and like Twitter. And we did have issues along the way. Like for example, our Instagram kept getting banned. Like, and I was texting Dave and Gaz being like, "Oh, it's banned again." And
talk about that. So our Instagram was shut down, just for folks listening to this, because we started posting every 10 minutes, right? It was
post intervals,
yeah. And we accelerated the post intervals because there was such a demand of the athletes, and we wanted to post more people because the value proposition is that you get posted on the feed. Like that's the name of the game.
And that's also how you're basically admitted into the program. And so we have 200,000 applicants. Those 200,000 people will all get accepted at some point and posted at some point, but there's really no way to funnel because of how many troll submissions I guess we get. Like anyone can fill out that form, so who's to say you're actually a D1 athlete until you go through, or any athlete really, until you go through the whole process, and then we post you. So that's kind of your way in. So everyone's like, post me. How? Like, how do we do
right
this? So.
But then the other issue that I think is so interesting for us is that we're limited by the spam filters of Instagram. So Instagram's like, we tried to post every 2 minutes because we were putting pressure on you guys to open the filter, like get people in, get the program going, get momentum. But when you go too fast and you go faster than the program allows, and obviously everyone from Facebook was on vacation, so we couldn't get any help, it shuts you down. So it's really interesting, in my opinion, to have, essentially it was crowdsourced. So, 200,000 applicants. We got 2 guys. You got a little bit of support, but not really. Like, let's say maybe there's 5 people total, 2 full-timers plus 5 to 6 volunteers. And it's, I don't know, how would I say this? And then we have we can't move fast. We're going faster than
limited.
Instagram. The limitation is a technology platform beating, which is just, I think that's ironic.
Yeah, if we could have sat there for 72 hours and posted straight, like I would have done it. Like I just wanted to get as many people out as we could, but Instagram was like, slow down a little bit. Yeah. So eventually we had to go to, I think we're at 15-minute intervals, and that was like the Instagram magic number. It's like we do 15 minutes 24/7, then we can do that forever, and we'll never get suspended. And the problem
was, it's just frustrating though, because I'd like to see more people on there.
If we could, we would post all of them. Like we would sit there around the clock and put them all up. But the problem was we were scheduling out posts as well. So when we were getting the few hours to sleep at night, it's like you might as well put some posts to be scheduled. We would wake up and Instagram would ban our account, and those 6 hours worth of, or whatever, however many hours,
over again,
would just be deleted, and then it just messes up the whole process because everything else starts failing because the account gets banned, and until it gets unbanned, you can't post. So it's like we would lose days and days of work, and it's like, we can't be proactive and get ahead.
Yeah,
because
there's no getting ahead. There's no getting ahead.
Instagram's just gonna say no. So
and how do you? I think you're just a really great example of someone. I agree. You have an awesome work ethic. You always have had an awesome work ethic. And I also think you're really loyal and committed to Barstool and to Dave, which shows. But I also think that's part of that's the shortcut. Like, that's the secret to the shortcut. Like, you can go have any number of jobs from having worked here. You can work at social media. You can work for a celebrity. You can be a man. Like there's nothing you can't do because you have the work ethic and you have the initiative. Like I think there's a lot of people here who are like, I want the Barstool shortcut. I think what people don't realize is to get the Barstool shortcut, in a lot of ways, you got to give up your July 4th week and post every 2 minutes and then repost 700 things because you got kicked off Instagram.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I just chalk it up to it being like the experience. Like Dave, working for Dave has been like the best thing that I've ever done.
You've
like
learned
it's
so much.
Yeah, you learn a lot, and just being able to like be around him and just like travel with him and all that is just, you learn far more than I could doing anything else. And so while that may be frustrating, that like sure, Dave is probably not. Like he's having a 4th of July vacation too. Like granted, he's still taking his calls or whatever, but he's not gonna like come into the office and like hang out with you while you while you do all that stuff. But it does speak to like just how that you may be doing that one week, but then the next week you'll be in like Los Angeles recording like a BFFs pod sort of thing. So it's like and that's fun, and it's crazy to see how. My relationship with him, like I said, was not great. So I'll see comments all the time that people are like, how did you like transition?
How'd you turn it around?
Yeah. How'd you like, because Dave's not really a guy that you can kind of negotiate with. If he doesn't like you, he's just probably not going to like you. But somehow, and I mean, the answer truly is like, just put in the effort and make him show.
Yeah. I mean, no one else was offering to clean up his He could not make his way through his apartment.
Right.
Like, do you remember that? You'd go into the lobby and it was like, you couldn't even get in the elevator. It was insane.
Yeah. I still have like videos.
It was insane. It was so disturbing. It was so disturbing. Yeah. What do you think? What are the biggest things you've learned from working with Dave?
Mainly just be adaptable. Like you just have to adapt to just situations on the fly, like no matter what it is. Dave's not a big like schedule far months and months in advance type of guy, so it's like he has an idea, something happens, it's very last minute, so you have to on the fly figure out how do we like solve this. That's probably number one, and he's not, if you can't do that, you're gonna get it. Yeah, Dave's gonna give it to you, so it's like he expects you to be able to like on the fly be able to figure out a solution, go and do it.
Yep.
And then it's all besides that, it's almost just the opportunities that I get to like have with him. It's like you get to meet all these people, like you get to do all these different things, and just listening to him talk and how his like brain works. Like we'll be figuring out just something random, like it could be like a guest for the show, and then it's like we have 2 guests, how do we figure out which one we run, or like how do we figure out what topics for each, and there's just something that clicks in his brain every time you're with him, and then it's just he has an idea and he just says go for it, and then that's kind of how it is. So it's crazy to see someone who could just, his brain just works like at a snap, and then it always works. Like it's something just magical always happens out of it. So just being in his presence almost kind of makes me, I don't know, just be able to adapt and just that's really it. I mean, he's
adaptability is
adaptability. That's the one word I would probably use for it, is that
that's great.
Be able to adapt to any situations. And it's also a lot of pressure. I will say that like working under Dave is a lot of pressure. Like people say like, how is it to work for him? It is like, he's one of those guys who, it's if you mess up, he's going to let you know about it, which as he should. Like that helps you learn and grow. And like you almost have to be able to take him yelling at you in order to like get better. And it's not that like he's yelling at you because he doesn't like you or like whatever it is.
Whatever didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. And he's like, that's how you get better. It's like he's going to tell you this. Yeah. You did this wrong. You did this wrong. Why did you do it that way? Let's do it this way instead next time. And then you'll never do that way again because you talk.
How old are you?
24.
Okay. Do you feel like I agree with you. I think you're in a once in a lifetime ride. Like I look at Frankie Borelli. Frankie Borelli is Dave Portnoy changed his life how he works, how he thinks, what he thinks he's capable of. You're going to have the same experience. I think anybody who works under Dave, even Gaz, right? Like there's the exposure to how he thinks, the pressure of working in that like pressure cooker, in that vacuum, the accountability, the need for adaptability. And then I think there's something about Dave and also something about Barstool that makes you want to give your all. Like there's something about like everything for the cause. How do you feel about like other 24-year-olds are like out getting drunk, or you're, going out and meeting girls and whatever? Like, do you feel there's a sacrifice involved?
There is.
How do you feel about that?
It's all about balance. I mean, I don't want to say like I don't go out and I don't like do whatever else. Like I like to have fun with my friends and like go out just as much as like the next person. But I think you have to know what the balance is. Like if it's the 4th of July week and you have to not go out. And
you get the text message on your phone. You're like, I gotta go.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't be like, oh, like maybe I'll do it tomorrow or I'll start in a couple hours. It's like, no, you're just going to go sit in the office for 20 hours a day. And like, that's just how it has to be.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to be ready at any moment's notice for that to be the case. Also, it's like, this is a 24/7 job. I've learned that too. Like Dave might text me at 11 p.m. asking me to do something. Like that's just kind of how it is. But then he could just leave me alone the whole day the next day. And then I would have time to do my errands, whatever. Yeah. So you just have to always be kind of on the clock.
Yeah. That
might not show in terms of like your hour output might just be like very different and than your friends or anybody else that you're going out with or whatever the case may be. But you just have to know that that's just how Barstool is. Like that's a part of the process. Yeah. And I always think about it like I wouldn't ever want to be in like a 9 to 5 like cubicle job where sure 5 o'clock hits and then I go home and then I can do whatever I want. I can hang with my friends. I can just anything you so desire. It's all yours.
Have a life.
The world is yours. Yeah, go have a life. But would I be happy doing that? Would I like?
No,
would I
be
get
bored.
the experiences? Yeah, exactly. So I just that's for me. That's just how that keeps me going. Is like sure it's 24/7, but are you actually working 24/7? In a sense, like you're always available, right? But that doesn't mean you can't do other things and you can't go out and have fun and all that stuff. So
all right, thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
great job.
Really
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so big thanks to Karim. Let's give a shout out to FTX. FTX is the world's most popular mobile app for cryptocurrency tracking and trading. You can build your portfolio. You can follow the prices of more than 10,000 coins. You can get notifications directly on the projects that you care about. You can buy and sell Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and other top tokens with zero fees. That's zero fees. The other thing you get is a free coin with every trade over $10. Visit the App Store and download FTX for free today. All right, moving on to voicemails. Voicemail number 1 from Melissa.
What is your best advice for first-time managers? Notably, how do you create a nice culture in your own little team when the culture for the workplace generally kind of sucks? But you got to work with what you got.
All right. Melissa wants to know about creating your own team culture when your workplace sucks. I have often had this problem. Interestingly enough, I was reading on Friday night that LinkedIn has announced that they are letting individual teams decide if they're coming back to work or not. How crazy is that? I am so anti that strategy. I think that they're going to have no corporate culture, no corporate identity. I can't even imagine how that works. If they hadn't been bought by Microsoft, I would say there's zero chance that any company that cares about growth is making a decision like that. I could be old and out of touch, but that's what I think. Anyways, back to Melissa. How do you create a culture on your own team? Let's remember people buy into being part of a team. They don't necessarily buy into the total company. So you can create a great culture in your team by being a good manager, be fair, be communicative, set out the expectations well. Do team building. Like team building can take all different shapes and forms. You could go out and do drinks. You could do trust falls. You could create activities for one another. We do all sorts of that stuff here. Everybody does it a little bit differently. You need, I think, to be sensitive to what your team is interested in and who your team is comprised of. But the culture for your group starts with you. So I think what you need to do, Melissa, is to share what your values are for your team, share what your vision is, share what your expectations are, reward people, create consequence when people don't deliver, and then create a sense of team and a team spirit amongst everyone by the way you do things and how you do things. And then don't forget to celebrate the group. It could be in big ways, could be in little ways, could be often, could be infrequent, but that's how I would build your team culture. Voicemail number 2 is from Austin.
I'm currently 29 years old. But the one question I have, which I've always found to be difficult to answer, whether it be truthful or trying to find a balance of truth, is I never finished out my 4 years for my bachelor's. I finished out roughly about 2.5 years and ended up dropping out due to personal circumstances. But when it comes to employers who ask about your college experience and, what education you have, what would your recommendations be for how to answering that?
Great question from Austin is how do you explain it when you drop out of college? I will forever be scarred by, I remember working for AOL and I hired a awesome woman who had worked for me before at Digitas. I hired her, and then it went to HR and legal, and HR and legal said that I could not, in fact, hire her because she lied on her resume about whether or not she graduated from college. And she dropped out of school, I think, 2 months before graduation for some personal reasons. I thought that was bullshit. So my advice to you, Austin, is to own your story. If you dropped out of school for personal reasons, say I dropped out of school for personal reasons. Have a very tight, pat answer on it. You don't need to be ashamed of dropping out of school for personal reasons. You should just be honest, which is, hey, I went to college. I loved this. I learned that. This happened, or something happened in my family, or something happened in my personal life, and I wasn't able to finish, but here's what I did instead. That's all you need to say, and you hold your head high when you say it. Voicemail number 3 is from Rachel.
I'm calling because I'm curious as to what you think the best way to approach messaging someone on LinkedIn, like kind of cold call messaging them. Is it best to purchase a lot of emails to be able to email the recruiter or the hiring manager, and what do you say when you are approaching the hiring manager for a specific role? Thank you.
So Rachel wants to know how to message someone on LinkedIn. I'll be the first to tell you that I do not read my LinkedIn messages. So I don't think that you should rest your future career on InMail or whatever product LinkedIn is trying to sell you. You should, however, bank your career on your outreach. You can DM someone. You can put a cold email out there. You can obviously use LinkedIn. You can send an email. The best thing to do is to be specific and direct in your headline, to be complimentary and knowledgeable about the company, and to be clear on your ask. And I think you can figure out a way to do that in a DM. It's a little bit different how you do it in an email. It's even different yet how you would do it in a letter. But if you really want a job and you really want an opportunity to be considered, you should do all those things. Obviously, we have people reaching out to us in crazy ways here. I have someone who sent me a painting. That people have sent resumes on pizza boxes. I've got a guy making blogs about Deirdre so that he can get a sales job. So there's all sorts of ways to get a company to pay attention to you. Don't just rely on a product that a platform is selling you and think that that's the secret to success. That's it for today's episode. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave us a review, or give us a rating. You can watch this episode along with a whole bunch of others on YouTube. Just Google Token CEO. If you haven't already, join our Facebook group. It's where we talk jobs, internships, and maneuvering situations at work. I'm at Token CEO and EKA Nardini. You can also find us on TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'll see you Thursday.